Welcome back to NewsMakers. We are with Joe Kane, Hector Matthews and Megan Woods. Well, Don Brash returned to Orewa last Saturday to speak to the National Party faithful in Orewa, and he has returned to some of his known themes, all things race, and also why isn't New Zealand closing the gap with Australia when it comes to economic performance? Now, of course, Don Brash is the head of the Task Force 2025 Commission. If he doesn't think National is sincere in pursuing this closing of the gaps, should he actually resign from this commission?
I think one of the things that sort of people are talking about a split within National with Don Brash's speech here, and I don't see it that way at all. I actually think that what we have is a National Party that's putting up a really good front, of a very good smiling and waving front, while they're doing a lot of the things that Brash championed. I mean, we're seeing a National government that's declared war in a lot of areas. I mean, people are going to...
war?
They have. People are going to be, OK, $80 more a week going to be charged for some people in the early childhood next year. That's really going to hit a lot of families really hard. $80 is not an insignificant amount of money to find on top of what you're already paying for early childhood. We've seen cuts to adult and community education. We've seen workplace laws really going hard in that area. I don't really think that there is a huge change within the National Party. It's just a different packet that they're putting on it. So I think they realised after 2005 and losing the 2005 election, you needed to soften up the image a bit more.
You see, Brash clearly believes National is too centrist for the country's good. It may benefit them in the polls, but for the country's sake, they're far too safe, far too middle of the road, Hector.
Well, they're a centrist party, you know, they're just sort of slightly right of centre. All our parties are centrist, they're just slightly left or right.
Yeah.
Look, I agree with Megan for slightly different reasons. I don't think there is a split in the National Party. I just think, you know, the Prime Minister's response to Don Brash is starting to verify that Don Brash is becoming less and less relevant to a whole lot of New Zealanders. You know, he talks about our people, but what he means is what middle class
Tories.
Tories. That's what he means, and so it probably doesn't include anyone sitting in this room. And you know, the fact that the Māori Party ignored it and the Prime Minister ignored it shows that he's actually just becoming irrelevant, and people are just sick of it.
I just wonder though, within the National Party ranks, surely a lot of those white middle class Tories will see Don Brash as their mouthpiece, their voice.
That's what I reckon. I actually reckon it's a bit of a ruse. I reckon it's setting a scene and Brash is doing it. Why would he bite the hand that's actually feeding him at the moment? And I think it's a bit of a ploy. Put Brash out there, and it's the feelers that are going out within their own to see what kind of ripple effect between now. Look at the timing of it. The timing is perfect for what the National has to do between now and the election next year. So I think it's put up as a patsy to get a feeling about what they might be going to do with the Maori Party. What are they going to say on their platform? So I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist. I reckon
it may well be correct. I just think that the Prime Minister's playing his cards very well. He'll stand back and ignore it a wee bit, because there'll be a whole bunch of Nats who think he's irrelevant. You know, those 30s and the young Nats.
But what Brash is right on is why are we really not getting the picture on what's really happening in the economy? And that's what I think he was more on the mark was. And I think that's where the Prime Minister is trying to just distance itself a wee bit, because they'd hate to actually have to disclose the real books and what's really happening economically in this country.
Well, I find it hard to work this out. And Megan, I'm sure the Labour Party is struggling with this too. Why is there still this huge gulf between National and Labour in the polls when the latest polls on the tax cuts indicate the vast majority of New Zealanders do not feel better off, and National promised they would. And why aren't you gaining on that?
It's certainly a prolonged honeymoon in the polls, but the interesting thing is if you actually do look at the polling, the trends in the polling data, you do actually see that there is actually a closing.
So Labour's going from 31 to 33% or something?
But if you look at the line, I mean, there is a closing, and I think as we get closer to the next election and people start thinking about these things a lot more and who they're going to vote for next time, when they're paying $80 a week more for childcare, when they're paying more on GST, when they're subject to 90-day legislation at work, I think that will make the call.
But it's Hector's party, the Māori Party, that is absolutely kingmaker. Is there any chance the Māori Party will say, bye-bye, John, we're off to Phil land?
It's been an uncomfortable relationship, you can see, can't you? And you certainly notice it now with the, whatever they're calling the new Seabed and Foreshore Act. it was always going to be an uncomfortable relationship, and I suspect the next 12 months we'll see how uncomfortable it is. You can see that with Hone. Hone clearly isn't comfortable in the relationship.
Yeah.
And both Peter and Tariana have a level of discomfort. They're just a little bit, I guess, older and wiser and able to play that sort of statesmanly type role a bit better.
They seem to have an excellent personal relationship with John Key. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, I mean, but they disagree on. I mean, there's a lot of fighting behind the scenes over the seabed and foreshore stuff, and there are elements in there that the Māori Party wanted that they didn't get. It doesn't look a lot different from the one we've got at the moment in many respects, and that's creating tension amongst the membership, because there are some people who expected more around that, and that will definitely come to a head as this process progresses.
What I don't understand is this love affair with John Key. I just don't get
You're
it.
not in love?
Especially from... No, not with John Key. But,
He speaks so highly of you, Joe.
but middle class... I mean, I'm going, why? I can't understand the polls, because when you look at the major hits that we've taken, electricity, petrol, and why people are not spending or saving, it's because they actually haven't got any money. And yet, the polls tell me, everybody... And where is he? He's everywhere out in the community. He's actually not running the country.
Well, to use the Labour Party cry, it's smile and wave.
It is smile and wave. I'd be more worried about the tight five directly behind him than what the Prime Minister's doing.
And I think that's one of the key
New Zealanders in love with him. It's like, oh my God.
And he is very much the face of it. We're not seeing the other ministers. They're kept very much in the background, and it's John Key out there smiling and waving.
All right, very quickly, we've only got about a minute or so for this. The CDHB, are they going to take a financial hit because of the earthquake and the ensuing costs that has led to? There is this $13 million figure being bandied about. What's the go, Joe?
This is where, which Canterbury is going to have to watch. This is, Canterbury, the earthquake's over, get on and deal with it. And you remember the first 2 weeks, every politician was in and what have you. And now it's like, we'll get over it and get on with it. And all of the problems that are actually happening in that hospital setting, which is, if you actually just look at the hospital with every time there's a shake, things have to shut down, operating theatres, all got to be checked all over again. There is a flow-on effect. And it's going to cost us about $13 million. And suddenly there's this from the Minister, we might have to put you on performance watch. Now, is that saying that the government is really caring about what is happening in Canterbury and the impact of that 4th of September? Doesn't sound like that to me.
All right.
And I think it's grossly unfair.
Very quickly, as an executive member, are you in a position to speak freely on this?
I guess all I can say is if the Minister says we aren't going to get any extra money regardless of the extra cost that the earthquake put on the DHB, we'll have to find it from somewhere, which means some very difficult decisions. So we'll kind of feel like we're being hit twice. So
maybe Aaron's free parking at the hospital might just disappear.
We might have to charge for the parking.
You're not in love with that either?
Well, we don't set the parking. It's a city council.
Not our car park.
It's not our car park.
Fair enough.
But it got him elected.
Yes, it certainly did.
But this-
And he's delivered.
And this does...
He reckons he's delivered.
No, not at the hospital. He wanted free parking at the hospital.
Well, he's got the building. He's got the 2 hours at the building.
Well, actually, I thought he voted against it, actually, didn't he? Free parking.
Very quickly.
Very quickly, what is saying that the fact that we're being left to pick up the tab ourselves as Cantabrians on this sounds like cuts to frontline services and health to me.
OK. That was a very succinct summation from a prospective politician. Coming up very shortly, we'll have a look at some other matters, including, of course, the Remembrance service on Thursday at Omoto Racecourse. Do stay with us.